Have you ever walked through a village at night when every street is empty and the darkness feels almost alive? The kind of darkness that makes you wonder if someone or something is watching. Before I begin, a warning. What you're about to hear is not just a story. It's a signal, faint but dangerous. The kind of signal that finds those who are listening. If you're still here, don't just listen in silence. Subscribe to the pale signal and keep the light on. Because the moment you stop paying attention, that's when she comes closer. Not the kind of villages you see on postcards or TV dramas, but the ones where the streets are deserted after sunset, where the only sound you hear is the creaking of a hand pump or the rustle of dry leaves against mud walls. There's something about the countryside darkness. It feels heavier than the city's night. And in the heart of that silence, if you're unlucky, you might hear something you can't explain. For me, that something came in the form of a story, whispered over tea in a small Punjabi village. They called it Wali Dulhan, the bride of the well. At first, I thought it was just another folktale, the kind of bedtime scare tactic older people use to keep children from wandering too far. My introduction to the story was casual. A friend, Adnan, took me to his ancestral village in Hafizabad. It was late winter, the kind of evening where the fog thickens early and the air smells of burning wood. After dinner, we sat outside with some of his relatives. Someone mentioned the old well near the fields, abandoned decades ago. That's when an elderly man leaned in and said, almost in a whisper, "Don't ever walk near it after sunset. The Dulhan still cries from inside." The way he said it froze me. Not as a joke, not as a playful tease. It was a warning. My first encounter. I'll be honest, I didn't believe him. But later that night, while walking with Adnan back to the guest room, I heard it. Very faint, carried on the cold air. A woman, crying. Not loud, not obvious, but unmistakable. Adnan's face turned pale instantly. He didn't say a word. He just grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. That night, I didn't sleep much. Over the next few days, I asked around. The story was always the same. Long ago, a bride was betrayed on her wedding night. Some say she was murdered by her in-laws. Others say she drowned herself in despair after being pushed into the well. But everyone agreed she never left. When she appears, she looks like a bride in red, her dress drenched as if soaked for years. The terrifying part. People say her face is always hidden by her dupatta. She never lifts it, except when she pulls someone into the well. Interview 1. The farmer. One evening, I sat down with Bashir, a farmer in his 50s. He had the weather-beaten face of someone who spent a lifetime in the fields. When I asked him about the bride, his tone dropped to a whisper. "I saw her once," he said, his eyes narrowing. "It was harvest season. I was late in the fields. As I passed the well, I saw a woman sitting on its edge, her red dress glowing in the moonlight. I thought it was strange. No woman would be there at that hour. She was crying, her back towards me. I called out. She stopped. Slowly, she turned her head. That's when I saw her feet. He paused, his hands trembling slightly as he lit a cigarette. They were wet, but not just wet. They were covered in weeds, like she had just climbed out of the water. I ran. I didn't look back. I asked him if he believed it was real. He didn't even hesitate. Real enough that I haven't gone near that well in 20 years. Interview 2. The old woman. Later, I found an older woman, perhaps in her 70s. Her name was Nasima, and she lived in a small mud house not far from the well. She claimed she had heard the bride many times. When I was young, she said, I would fetch water from that well. Sometimes I'd hear anklets tinkling as I approached. One night, I leaned in to draw water. That's when I heard her whisper my name. I asked what happened next. She looked at me with eyes that seemed both fearful and sad. I dropped the rope and ran. The next morning, the well was covered in strange weeds, as if the water itself had turned against us. After that, the elders sealed it. But still, her crying continues. My own curiosity. I couldn't resist. On my last night in the village, I went near the well. Not too close, just enough to see it from a distance. The moonlight cast long shadows, and the banyan tree beside the well looked like a watchful guardian. The place felt wrong. The air was heavy, thick, as if it didn't want me there. Then faintly, I heard it. The same soft weeping I had heard that first night. Only this time it was closer. I didn't go nearer. Something deep inside me screamed not to. Instead, I walked back, each step faster than the last. The pattern emerges. Every person I spoke to had some variation of the same story. A woman crying, appearing at the well, pulling people in. The features matched. Red bridal dress, wet feet, anklets, hidden face, and each story ended with fear so strong that no one dared approach the well again. By the end of my stay, I realized something important. This wasn't just a ghost story told to scare children. It was part of the village's fabric. Everyone believed it. Everyone avoided the well. And yet, the crying still continued. As I packed to leave, Adnan told me quietly, "You shouldn't have asked so much. People who get too curious about her don't always leave the village the same." I laughed it off, but deep down, a chill settled in my bones. I hadn't even seen her, and still, the thought of that drenched bride waiting in the shadows haunted me. When I left Adnan's village, I promised myself I would forget the story. But the problem with these tales is that they stick to you like damp air. Even as I drove back toward the city, the image of that mossy well haunted me. And every so often, I caught myself glancing into the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a drenched bride seated in the back seat. Weeks passed, but the more I tried to bury the memory, the more it clawed its way back. Until one evening, while sipping chai at a roadside dhaba, I overheard a truck driver telling the same story to another man. Only this time, it wasn't Hafizabad. He spoke of a cursed well near Sheikhupura. The details were nearly identical. A bride in red, anklets, crying from inside the water. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just one village's legend. It was something wider, deeper, an entire folklore passed across Punjab, told under different names, but with the same sinister bride. A return to the village I couldn't resist. A month later, I returned to Adnan's village under the pretense of research. The villagers were cautious. Some refused to talk. Others brushed me away, as if mentioning the Dulhan might summon her. But slowly, I found more voices. One young man, barely 20, admitted he had gone to the well with friends at night to test the legend. His words were shaky. "We thought it was a joke. We took lanterns, sat near the well, and waited. Nothing happened. We laughed, called out for her. Then, suddenly, one of my friends froze. He pointed down into the water. I swear to God, I saw her dupatta floating just under the surface, red, as if someone was right there, watching. We ran so fast, we left our lanterns behind." He showed me the scar on his arm, where he fell running through the fields. "I'll never go back," he whispered. Interview 3, the Imam. One voice stood out more than the rest. The local Imam, a man respected for his wisdom, agreed to speak with me. His words carried the weight of decades of stories and fears. "This well was once a source of life," he began. "Families drew water, children played near it. But after that bride's death, whether murder or suicide, Allah knows best, strange things began. People heard her crying. Livestock refused to drink from it. And then, men began to vanish." I asked him what he believed the Dulhan truly was. A restless spirit, a demon, or just superstition. He looked me straight in the eye. "She is real, but she is not what she appears to be. A jinn, perhaps, taking the form of a wronged bride. They choose the stories we fear most, and in our land, nothing is more sacred and vulnerable than a bride. That is why she appears so. She feeds on our fear, our guilt, our sins." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "There are things in this world we are not meant to chase. If you value your life, you will leave the well alone." But of course, I didn't listen. My decision to investigate. That night, I made up my mind. I would go to the well alone, not to prove the villagers wrong, but to see the truth with my own eyes. I told myself it was research, but deep down, it was curiosity, a dangerous kind of hunger. I packed my small camera, a torch, and a voice recorder. At midnight, when the village was asleep, I slipped out quietly. The dirt path to the well was colder than I remembered. The fog hung low, making each step feel like I was sinking into another world. When I finally reached it, the well stood there, like a black mouth in the earth. The banyan tree beside it creaked softly in the breeze, its roots twisting like skeletal fingers. I turned on my recorder. It's 12:47 a.m. I'm at the well, the near encounter. I froze, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned the sound of the crickets. I whispered into the recorder. I can hear her. She's crying. God help me, it's real. The sobbing grew louder. Then came the faintest chime, the unmistakable tinkling of anklets. My torchlight flickered, as if the batteries were being drained. I backed away, but something made me stop. Curiosity? Fear? I don't know. I leaned just a little closer over the edge. That's when I saw it, a shape beneath the water. Red fabric swirling slowly, rising as if pulled by invisible hands. My breath caught in my throat. The dupatta, suddenly the crying stopped. Silence. Dead silence. Then, a hand shot up from the darkness. Pale, thin, wet, reaching. I stumbled back, dropping the recorder. My torch clattered against the stones. For a second, I thought the hand would breach the surface, would grab me and pull me down. But it didn't. It hovered just below, fingers twitching, before sinking back into the depths. I ran. I don't even remember how I made it back to the guest room. All I know is that when I woke the next morning, my shoes were still damp. And on the recorder, which I found near the well at sunrise, only one sound remained: the faint jingle of anklets. The village reaction when I told Adnan and a few others what happened, they looked at me with horror. No one spoke. Finally, the imam said, "She has seen you now. Once she shows herself, she does not forget. You must leave." I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. But deep inside, the imam's words gnawed at me. Because in the nights that followed, even after I returned to the city, I kept hearing it. The faint sound of crying, sometimes outside my window, sometimes in my dreams. And with it, the soft tinkling of anklets. I thought leaving the village would put an end to it, that I could outrun whatever I had seen. But fear doesn't stay behind. It travels with you, slips into your bags, and hides in the quietest corners of your mind. Back in the city, everything should have felt normal. Streets buzzing with traffic, neon signs glowing, chai stalls clattering with cups. Yet when the night came, I felt it. The heaviness, the same suffocating air I'd felt near the well. And then the dreams began. The dreams. At first, they were faint. I'd find myself walking through the foggy fields of Adnan's village, the moonlight pale above me. Always, the sound of anklets guided me toward the well. I'd lean over its edge, and the crying would begin. Sometimes, I woke up drenched in sweat before she appeared. Other times, I wasn't so lucky. I'd see her just the faint outline of a bride in red, her face hidden, her dupatta dripping with water. The worst part wasn't the dream itself. It was waking up and hearing, faintly, in the distance, the echo of anklets outside my own window, the pull to return. I tried to bury myself in work, to forget. But the villager's words returned to me again and again. Once she shows herself, she does not forget. It was as if the Dulhan was calling me back, not to haunt me in the city, but to draw me to her world. The well, her home, her prison. And one night I gave in. I told myself it would be the last time, that I would face her, record what I saw, and finally end the obsession. I packed my camera, recorder, and a lantern, and before I could change my mind, I boarded a bus back to the village. The last interview. When I arrived, Adnan refused to speak to me. He said I was cursed, that returning would only make it worse. But one man did agree to meet me. His name was Yasin, and years ago, he had lost his older brother to the well. His voice trembled as he recalled it. It was monsoon. My brother went out at night to check the fields. He never came back. The next morning, we found his turban near the well. Villagers searched, but his body was never found. Only pieces of red fabric floating on the surface. No one knows where they came from, but my mother swears it was her. The Dulhan pulled him under. Yasin looked at me with hollow eyes. If you go there, don't expect to return. She doesn't just take bodies. She takes souls. The final night. That evening, I walked the path to the well one last time. The fog was heavier than before, curling around the fields like smoke. Each step felt slower, heavier, as if the earth itself was trying to hold me back. When I reached the well, I set down the lantern and switched on my recorder. It's midnight. I've returned. If anything happens tonight, this may be the last thing I ever record. The air grew colder. My breath fogged in the light, and then it began, the crying. Soft at first, then sharper, echoing from inside the well. I leaned forward, every nerve in my body screaming to run, but I couldn't move. The water rippled. Something red floated upward. Then, slowly, she rose. The bride appears. For the first time, I saw her clearly. She wasn't just a shape under the water. She emerged, half submerged, her red bridal dress clinging to her thin frame, dripping endlessly. Water streamed from her dupatta, which hid her face completely. But her anklets, they rang softly, like bells tolling in the dead of night. I whispered into the recorder, my voice trembling. She's real. God help me. She's real. She lifted her hands slowly, reaching toward me. Her fingers were long, pale, almost skeletal. Every instinct told me to step back, but my legs wouldn't move. And then she lifted her face. For just a moment, I saw what lay beneath the dupatta, and I wish I hadn't. Her face wasn't human. It was bloated, waterlogged. Her skin, pale and split in places where the water had rotted it. Her eyes were hollow, black voids that stared into me, as if she was measuring my soul. I screamed. The recorder fell from my hand. The next moments are a blur. I felt the ground shift, as if the well itself was pulling me down. Her hands reached higher, water splashing against the stones. I stumbled back, barely catching myself before falling into the darkness below. And then, silence. The crying stopped. The anklets went still. She vanished beneath the surface, leaving only ripples that slowly faded into still water. I grabbed the recorder, clutching it like a lifeline, and ran. I didn't stop until I was back in the village, gasping for air. The imam met me at the door. One look at my face, and he knew. "You've seen her," he said. "Now you must carry her with you. She never lets go of those who meet her eyes." I left the village the next morning. I never returned. Epilogue. It has been months since that night. I play the recording sometimes, though I shouldn't. The crying is there, faint but clear. And then, just before the tape cuts, there is another sound. A woman's whisper. Soft, almost tender. She says my name. And sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I hear the anklets again. Not in the distance this time, but closer, inside my own home. It has been months since that night. I play the recording sometimes, though I shouldn't. The crying is there, faint but clear. And then, just before the tape cuts, there is another sound. A woman's whisper. Soft, almost tender. She says my name. And sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I hear the anklets again. Not in the distance this time, but closer, inside my own home. Maybe the villagers were right. Maybe the bride of the well doesn't just haunt a place. Maybe she haunts the people foolish enough to look for her. If you ever find yourself walking through a village and hear a woman crying near an abandoned well, don't go closer. Don't lean in. Don't even look, because once she sees you, she never forgets. If you're still listening, then the signal has reached you. Some say that once the bride whispers your name, there's no way back. But maybe, just maybe, keeping close to the pale signal will help you see her coming. Subscribe, if you dare, because she always returns.